Dan Adamson. I'm the assistant pastor at All Souls Fellowship, been there about 4 years. So I basically work with the small groups at our church, assimilation, people coming in, how they feel welcomed and whatnot, and do whatever Shane doesn't want to do, basically.
Which is a lot of things.
It is a lot of things.
Yeah.
So.
I'm Shane Wheeler, been here in Decatur for about 7 years, and the pastor of All Souls Fellowship here in Decatur. When we were first coming to look at about starting this church, I was here with a friend having lunch, and as I looked around this community, it's a very, very cool community, very interesting neighborhoods, very interesting demographic, and I looked at all the folks sitting around us, and there would be, a standard, middle-class couple with kids, and then there was a lesbian couple with their daughter, and then a grandmother, and interracial couples, and all these people sitting around us, piercings, tattoos, suits, you name it. And I started to wonder where they would go to church, what kind of church they would attend. And then as I started looking, the churches that were here, great churches, very, very good, but they weren't reaching a sort of the counterculture folks, people who were disenfranchised by the church, people who had been burned and were angry and had just kind of given up on God. And so we just decided, well, we want to live here. It's because it's a great city, and that means we need to start a church that can actually speak the vernacular of some of the folks in this culture and reach folks that had otherwise kind of given up on the idea of ever being involved in church again.
I think sometimes we get so consumed or fearful of how we're going to be perceived that we just stay in our little bubble, or we just don't do anything. And I think it's going to be a process. For me, it's taken me a while. I think the 4 years that I've been ministering here in this church, I'm completely different than I was 4 years ago, because I'm not just thinking of ideas or what I believe in the context of a classroom or my own individual faith. I'm having to deal with the hard questions asked of me when I say this is what I believe. And many times when I'm in my office talking to someone in our church, many times I have to say, I don't know. And I have to say, you're right, it's hard. Or I have to say, yes, it seems like this is a contradiction. And I'm being authentic in that. I'm not trying to fake some authenticity so that I can get them to believe what I believe. You know what? It is hard to walk that line, and I blow it. And sometimes when I first began to learn about grace and began to learn about my identity in Christ is not based on what I did or what I didn't do, but based on what Christ has done. My first reaction was I ran to the freedom of the gospel, which is wonderful. But then I began to have this arrogance, like, look how much I have gotten better than my friends who still think being a Christian means you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do this. And I began to get prideful in my own walk and realize that some of the things that I used to do for wrong motives, live my Christian life for wrong motives, were good in and of themselves. I just abused them because I tried to gain my own righteousness. I tried to gain my own acceptance before God based on what I did. And so now I've realized it's more, if Christ is my Lord, then how I live my life is in His truth and in His gospel and in His grace. And it's a process, and I'm always going to be learning, and I'm going to make mistakes along the way. And I want the people, both the conservatives and the liberals, to see my mistakes, so they know I'm not just faking it. They see I'm not the perfect Christian, and I make mistakes all the time, but I'm going to continue to be in their lives, and hopefully they'll be in my life as well as we walk together this journey.